think I'm back. Let me just see. Oh, fingers crossed that it's actually... people are saying stop futzing around. Well, you know, the interesting part is that I've actually got one less downlight now than I had before. Let me just turn this off. Let me know if... I think I'm back. Let me know, is that better, guys? Is that the sound and audio now? Maybe if we give him money, he might start. That might have worked, actually. Sorry, guys. For some reason, I had a really bad audio problem before, so I'll just have to see how it goes. G'day, Ben. How are you? I'm not going to say hi to everyone again because we just did that a few minutes ago. So I'm not going to go back to that. But I don't know what went on. We had a stack of people in here on the chat, and for some reason, my audio was not syncing at all. Now, I just want to say at the start of this, I put the heading on that it's official that the Canon EOS-R sucks. If you are a Canon fanboy, may I suggest that you don't watch this because you're probably not going to like what I'm going to say. So if you do, if it's going to hurt your feelings or whatever, please just switch off now and go and do something else, because there's no point in watching this if you're going to get all upset and carry on and everything like that about it. So if you do feel like it's going to upset you, please don't watch this show. Now, I can't say that to you any more than what I'm saying now. I'm talking about this from a Sony user, and I'm going to give you my opinions of what Max Yurev has said about the Canon camera. So I think we need to discuss that. Now, I have put my... I've put my coffee... I've opened the coffee up and I've put it into my Sony mug. So, cheers. Now, I wanted to talk to you about, and I'll open up the, oh, thank you so much. I already got a donation. It was from I'm De Brown, I think. Time for an intern. Oh, I love it. Now, I want to, thank you so much, I'm De Brown, Tony. Thank you so much for that. I want to discuss with you what Max Yurev, now I've been watching a number of reviews out on the internet, and it's becoming obvious that that camera has big flaws. I'm talking about the Canon EOS camera. Now, I know some YouTubers are saying they're going to buy them and things like that, and I'm very... Look, all I can say is you have to watch who you believe. Some YouTubers who are purchasing these cameras, that they are not sponsored by Canon. There are a number out there that you'll know what I'm talking about, who obviously have to support Canon. I did notice the other day that Sigma, I think it's Samyang or someone, has sued one of their so-called YouTube personalities. I heard it was $1 million or something out there for using an iPhone. I read that somewhere, whether that's true or not, but that does basically say to me that if you're sponsored by that company, then obviously you're going to say great things about that camera, and therefore you can't always trust what people say. I'm coming from an area where I'm not sponsored by anyone. Now, whether you believe that I'm just a Sony fanboy or what, but I'm certainly not being paid by Sony. And I certainly would move to another brand if that other brand was amazing. But at the moment, there's nothing can basically compare with what Sony can offer me. Fuji have come close with the X-T3, but there's still issues with that I may discuss a little bit later on. But having said that, I wanted to go through this video chat, this YouTube video. Now, what I'd like you to do is not obviously look at it now, but I'll put the link into this down below, and you can go and have a look at this video if you haven't already looked at it. And the thing is that basically what I looked at when I went through this video was how terrible the video is in this actual camera. And I'm going to show you a couple of examples that I actually grabbed from Max's channel. And please, like I said, go and watch that video. But let me just open up a couple of these examples, for instance. And I'm going to show you this one first. Let me bring this one over here. Now, what we're looking at here is the A7's here, the EOS-R. Now, you're probably not going to see this on YouTube due to the fact that the compression is just so bad. But the A7 is here. This is in 4K shooting, and this is an enlargement. The enlargement is taken off an image that looks like this, and I'll show you what the actual original image looked like. The original image looked like that, all right? And then he's blown that image up so you can see the difference in quality. And this was the 1080p one, but he's done the same thing with 4K. And 1080p. Now, what he's done here, he's reviewed the A7, which you can see here. This is the Canon EOS. This is the X-T3. This is the Nikon Z7, and this one over here was the Blackmagic new camera that's just been announced as well. And basically, I'll talk about this in a minute, but if you look at this one, how bad the actual Canon is compared to all of these ones, when Max is actually reviewing it, he said basically that the A7 III and the X-T3 are very similar in quality, but the A7 III is probably by far. And I noticed he did say a little bit further on, and I've just gone to his YouTube site over here, and he said that there was a slight correction. I said the Fuji X-T3 was the best in the last test, and I think that's the 120 frames per second test. And he said basically after looking at the images later, the A7 III was clearly the better camera out of all of them due to the X-T3 had aliasing and things like that. And the A7 III was cleaner overall. But this is the 4K view, and you can see how bad the Canon has actually done there. If we open up the large 1080p view, it's even worse. So not only is the Canon terrible in 4K, it's also crap in 1080p. Now, it looks that bad to me that it looks like basically I've just got a Canon lens or whatever, I'm using any camera, and I've just got Vaseline and smothered the Vaseline over the whole camera. I mean, seriously, it's shocking. Like, for a camera that is released in 2018, this is pathetic. I'm just going to watch my exposure. It's pathetic. Like, I mean, what were Canon thinking to release that camera in that price range? Now, I know the first thing that we're going to get is, oh, the color science. And that's the first thing that people are going to say. Who gives a crap about color science when that is your result you're getting off that camera? It is terrible. It's disgusting. And I cannot believe, and I feel sorry for Canon users. Now, yeah, a lot of people are going to pop on here and say, yes, but it's okay for still photography. But nowadays, when you buy cameras, people want fusion cameras. They want cameras that will be good for stills and also be great for video. And clearly, this camera sucks. If you compare this camera to the other cameras, I'm not holding back because it's just terrible. It really sucks. Now, let's talk about the problems. Okay, they've got a 1.8 crop. I mean, seriously, Canon, it's a 1.8 crop in 2018. That is nuts. So not only have you got a 1.8 crop, but you've got a lens that looks like it's got Vaseline rubbed over the front of it. I mean, that is disgusting. You cannot make out any details in that at all. I mean, it is pathetic. And like I said, if you're a Canon user, switch off because you're not going to want to hear me saying all this stuff. No IBIS. Now, yes, it has an articulating screen. I'm still a little bit hot. It's got no IBIS on the camera. You've got one card slot on that camera. When you do, it hasn't even got 1080p 120. You have to go to 720p to do 120, and that's without autofocus. I mean, seriously, compared to the other cameras, it's a joke. Max said that the 1080p footage, the 1080p footage looks like it was 720p, even worse than 720p footage. Now, Canon, what are you thinking treating your users like that? Like, you're clearly holding back. This is worse than the 5D Mark IV, and you're dealing with a camera that was released how many years ago? This is 2018, and you've got a camera that basically they're selling at a ridiculous price that is complete, utter crap. And if anyone wants to protect those images, look at Mac's videos. It is disgusting, and I honestly cannot believe that they have released that type of result when Canon were known for their video. And remember, they were always very strong on video. You've got a camera that won't focus continuously in 120p. You've got a camera that hasn't got IBIS. You've got a camera there that's got one card slot. You've got a camera that their 4K footage looks like it's got Vaseline rubbed across the front of it, and the 1080p looks like it's had double Vaseline rubbed across the front of it. Now, I know I'm going to get the fanboys, the troll fanboys coming on here. The color science. There's no point having great color science if the image looks like it's smothered with Vaseline. Now, come on, Canon. Seriously, this is absolutely ridiculous. Now, I want to open it up to the chat, but have a look at it. But looking at all the results that Max is talking about, I don't want to spend too long on this, but if you're looking at it, he's basically saying the A7 III has the best image overall. The Nikon, he said, was quite good, but it was over-sharpened and there was bad aliasing on basically everything that they were shooting, and there was a crop factor in there as well. So the Nikon, well, wasn't bad, but it wasn't anywhere near as good as what the Sony is and the Fuji. The Blackmagic camera was pretty good, but the clear winners out of the two of them were the Fuji and the Sony. And the Sony is on top. And when you think that the Sony now has already been out 12 months or so, what are they going to give us when they give us the new A7000 or the new A7S III? So it's really interesting when you look at those results. Now, those results don't lie. Max is not paid by anyone, so Max is one of the guys that does tell the truth about how the cameras are, and he's one that you can believe. And this is why I'm saying you have to be careful on who you believe on the internet, particularly by photographers that are paid Canon shills that you just hear all the time that are going to promote this camera because they have to. Now, I want to open it up to the chat because I'm really curious to know what you guys have to say about this. And I'm no doubt going to get more thumbs down. That's for sure. So let me open up the chat. And let's see what people have to say. Everyone's just saying hi, coming through here too. What else have we got? I just want to get down to seeing where people are actually talking about. Carl said, it's a denial of service attack by the angry photographer. The thing is, guys, and I hate people being ripped off. I do really hate people being ripped off. And I'd say the same thing about if Sony came out with a camera like that. I would slam Sony, trust me. But the point is, they haven't. They have looked after their users. And Canon, obviously, don't give a crap about the Canon users, because if they did, they wouldn't have released that camera. Who wants to release a camera in 218 that looks like it's got Vaseline smudged across the front of the camera? Oreo said, there must be people obsessed with David. Lafayette already one thumb down. I know, that's just such a crack up, Oreo. It really does crack me up. Really appreciate too, guys, if I could get a thumbs up, if you could give me one. It just means people will know that I'm online. Creative Film says, Kenny Simbo, go to sleep then. I'm not sure what that was about. Sue said, I got lost. Creative Film, Three Trees Photography said, damn, iPhone won't let me have two apps open at the same time. Stupid. Essential Light said, spoiler alert, EOS Video R is soft. Yeah, it's not only soft, it's smothered with Vaseline. Hey everyone, random question. Why is Canon RAW on the 5D 33 megabytes smaller than the uncompressed RAW on Sony? Not sure, actually. Someone else may be able to answer that. Carl Ryan said, AP smells an opportunity. Chase and Creation says, haha, he's got a thumbs down already. I know, it's ridiculous. Dave, we miss you, guy. This was before I actually popped back in. Audio's good now. All right, so let me get down to where we start talking about this stuff from Canon. Thank you so much, Tony, for the donation. Where are we? Because I so want to see what some of you guys actually say. Max tested it, mushy 4K and 1080p. It's disgusting. It is awful. I am a user, not a fanboy, but I want to hear your truth. Blurry AF. That's the other thing too that they said that I've looked at the footage. The footage that I've seen from it, it's like the old Sony cameras that used to have that shuddering background where it can't maintain focus. So yes, it does have, it's meant to have the fantastic video focus, but from what I've seen, the focus is not that great. Mike said, give David some love and a thumbs up. Thank you so much, Mike. Has said, was wondering what happened to the stream. It ended up being a separate video. Yeah, it was the audio was out with it. So that was the problem. Carl said, parental discretion is advised. Hey, David from Norway. Coffee. Yes, this is a lovely coffee. It's a bit malty. I had to open up my coffee with this. Oh. Panda said, hey everyone, g'day Panda. Creative Film says A7 III footage rocked. It did. Max said it was the only one of the videos that you could read the number plate. And this is the thing. Look, I give credit where it's due. And this, the first thing people are going to say, the Canon fanboys, when they come on here later, they're going to go, but the Sony color science. Oh, get a break. Give me a break, honestly. The A7 III footage was amazing when you looked at Max's footage. It's not only that, the rolling shutter of the Canon is disgusting. It is really bad. And it's a 1.8 crop. Let's keep going. Hey gang, love from New York. R in peace. Canon EOS-R. What are they thinking? Honestly. I said honestly. But the colour science, exactly, Carl. The colour science. You just have to look at it through Vaseline. Max better watch his back. The samurais are heading his way and about to turn him into sushi. Langston said, does anyone else find it really suspicious other channels have, how do I say it nicely, omitted this type of information? Exactly, Langston. And this is why I'm saying to you that you have to be very careful on who you believe, guys. Because these ones that are sponsored by Canon aren't going to knock it. And that was so obvious by someone like Peter that put out a video recently. He got slammed for what he put out on there. And it was so blatantly obvious what was going on. And it cracks me up. And I think it's terrible because you shouldn't treat your subscribers that way. It really is bad. Java said, no need to convince us, David. Those cameras are a load of crap. The YouTube compression takes away the over-sharpening. Yeah, the over-sharpening did look really bad on the Nikon. It was way over. Blaze King said, Max single-handedly gutted the sales of the EOS-R video in one video. I think you're right, Blaze King. I think he did. Langston said, I think I only trust Max, David Oastler at this point. Thanks, Langston. Mark said, interesting, the X-T3 has the same sharpness as Sony. They must be using a Sony sensor. They probably are, Mark. And like I've said to you all along, and this is where, guys, I give credit where credit's due. Like I said to people only the other day that I think the X-T3 is the best APS-C camera that's available. And I've said that to you. So unlike a lot of these YouTubers that are blinkered because they're being paid by people, I'm saying that about the X-T3 is better than what the Sony A6500 is. Jamie said, I was a Canon 7D shooter for years and I was waiting to jump to full frame. I finally decided on the A7R III and it's amazing. It certainly is. It's an incredible all-around camera, just like the A7 III is. B&B Film said the 4K is an upscale 1080p. The 1080p is a 720p and the 720p is a 480p. I love it. Joris said the Canon EOS-R is exactly the same sensor as the Canon 5D Mark 1V, which was pretty bad with video as well, in my opinion. Well, I think it's actually even worse. I mean, they had time to improve it, and what have they done? It's disgusting. Like, oh, I'm so glad I didn't buy that camera. Blaze King said the Sony is the best at the moment. I agree with you wholeheartedly. Unless you're dealing with APS-C, and then the Fuji, I think, is the best camera at the moment until we get an A7000 or something coming out. The Panda said, oh, it was a good video comparison. Jamie says, I'm in the same boat, 7D shooter for a long time, moving to Sony, and I don't blame you, Jamie. After looking at that effort and the price they're asking for that camera, I would not blame anyone for jumping ship. It's just disgusting. Oh, it's disgusting. Perhaps it's the new look that everyone wants to do. Perhaps that's what I need to do. To fix the Sony images that I'm shooting when I'm shooting video. Perhaps I need to go out and buy some Vaseline, cover the lens with Vaseline, and then it might give me the same look that Canon users are getting. Jason said, Blaze King, you're supposed to be watching the other ball YouTuber streaming right now. Is he on now, is he? Java said, Mr. Bond, and good riddance to Nikon as well. I think Nikon have done a better job than Canon, though. Canon went for the perfect grandpa, all-in-one video camera digital SLR with the 5D Mark II, and I got lucky and hit off with videographers. The Pro Video Digital SLR was never the goal, in my opinion. They certainly have held back, you're right, since that camera came out. Blaze King said, what about the colour science? Yeah, what about it? It's not a problem. That's why I always crack up when people say that. It's their only argument, and even that's not true. B&B Film says, it's a Canon 6D Mark II, that's all. And look at the price you're paying for that Canon. It's ridiculous. Canon will announce 2 new full-frame cameras in 2019. Hopefully they will fix this. Yeah, well, I'll wait to see that. The Panda said, who cares about colour science? It's pointless in the sensor if the sensor can't produce good images. Exactly. I agree wholeheartedly with you, Panda. Sam saying, "G'day, Mr. Bond said that EOS-R image looked like it was used a 24 millimeter 1.8 potato lens." Jimmy said, it was tough to switch, but I'm glad I did. My only knock is the weatherproofing isn't as good as Canon. Jamie, I can say that, I keep hearing that, but I've been using the Sonys all the time in weddings and things like that, and I've never had an issue with weather sealing. And I used it in the rain last weekend. Not an issue at all. So I think that's really way overblown. That test that came out ages ago had hoses that were basically coming on the cameras in a ridiculous way that you would never subject your camera to. If you're dealing with normal, using like in rain, or I've used my A7R2 and the A9 basically under waterfall with all the mist and everything all falling down. The camera was drenched and I never had a problem. I'm not saying there's going to be a problem, but I've never had a problem with it. So I think the weather sealing really is beaten up. But it's certainly something that they could improve, and they will over time. Sony have admitted that. Chasen Creation said, the typical soft video with great colour science, Canon results. Jamie Davis, how does one know whether the weather sealing isn't as good? Not sarcastic, never used a Canon myself. Exactly, I've said I've never had an issue with the weather sealing at all. Blaze King said, the Northrops just purchased an EOS-R as their main vlogging camera. Why? Don't know. Gian Smith said, two new... The other thing I have to say to you is, and you can often tell the ones that are doing this, because remember recently when, what was it, the 6D Mark II, everyone was slamming it, and then all of a sudden everyone started doing reviews of it. It was obvious Canon had paid people to do those reviews. It's obvious. This is why I'm saying you have to be careful who you believe, guys. You really do have to be careful. You're better off to trust people like Max, who are not paid by anyone to do any of these views, because it's by far more reliable. These people that you see on YouTube that you know are sponsored by Canon, you cannot trust. What have I got now? 3 thumbs down. I'll probably get more, won't I, shortly? I'll get way more by the time this goes out and all the Canon users start looking at it. Panda said the 1.8 crop Canon is equal to we don't care no more, we take your money. I know, that is the most ridiculous crop I've ever seen in my life. Not only is it a 1.8 crop, but it hasn't even got IBIS. I mean, Canon. I still cannot believe what you've said. Oreo said, a second thumb down has arrived. Must be the Canon fanboys and Sony haters. Sony hater with the term, I know who you're talking about. He recently, that one you're talking about, Emar or whatever he is, said it was the best camera ever released, I think, on his YouTube channel. What is wrong with that guy when you can say that? This is another one I'm saying is just a shill for Canon, because how can you seriously say, I haven't seen it, I just saw someone else talking about it in one of the channels. I think it was on Max's video somewhere, but in the comments down there. But how could you say that's the best camera out there? I won't say any more. Michael said, Jason said, I will say this about the EOS-R. Canon nailed the ergonomics and the feel of the camera and lenses. I played around with it at Photo Plus and everything felt great. Too bad its internals are a pile of... Exactly, you can hold it well, but it just feels like it just takes images like a piece of crap. I can't... Michael said, the same 2 haters came back and disliked you, David. I know, I laughed too about it. Sam said, what do you make of rumours about the new Panasonic full-frame offering external video RAW? I haven't heard that, but it wouldn't be something I'd want, Sam, because the file sizes would be ridiculous. But it's certainly videographers probably would like that if you were doing full-time videography. I battled shooting 4K, having the file sizes on that. And if you're dealing with shooting RAW as well, it's not something that I would want to get into, but I can certainly understand why people would want it. BMB Film said, the Canon EOS-R is a Canon 1DC, trust me. Java said, huge lenses too, it's ridiculous. They don't realise that we want smaller and lighter. That's one of the benefits of mirrorless, is to have these beautiful small lenses. Delta Dave said, I think it looks great. Sincerely, VHS. I think this makes VHS look good, Delta Dave. It really does. You know what? The funny thing is, if you watch, sometimes they play programs that have come back from 10 years ago. You'll see it on TV, and then that's when you realise how far technology's gone. And you look at the new TV, the 1080p TV, and you go, wow, that's sharp. And then you look at an old show that was produced a few years ago and you go, boy, that looks terrible. Well, that's what Canon have done. It does. It looks like VHS. It's just terrible. Blaze King said, Ben Bartlett said, David, Gerald Undone did a fantastic video on the colour science and how it's insignificant. You should discuss this with your audience. Yeah, I should do that eventually, Ben. I will do that eventually if I can. Blaze King, I've actually looked at that, but I haven't read that yet or even seen the video yet. Blaze King said, but the Northrips just bought one. Well, that's their decision. Jason said, Peter McShillen, we love your challenge of trying to make the baby food soft videos look good. Oh, boy. Oh, I love it. The Panda said, I think it's time to get with the time. Canon VHS video quality is the best they can do right now. Oh, this is shocking. They bought it just for vlogging and said that Sony is still the leader. I mean, there's no point buying it for vlogging if it's going to look like it's got Vaseline put across the front of it, is it? Those images were terrible. There's no way I would use it. I did think about buying this camera because I wanted the articulating screen. There's no way now after seeing Max's video that I would buy that camera. I can tell you that now. My Maverick Pro is sharper. I love it. That's a classic, Jason. That is so good. I'm going to move on in a minute because we're going to be here for half an hour going through this Canon stuff. We'll be here for 2 hours again. Langston said they really like the autofocus on the Canon and it's kind of single purpose. Northrop's also lost footage now and refuse it for vlogging. That's right. It's only got one card slot. Jimmy said it was a big part of my choice. What else before we move on? Chasing Creation said the EOS-R is the only great camera for Canon and not their users. The EOS-R is only a great camera for Canon. Yes, exactly. It is. I can't believe people will buy it. Three Trees Photography says, how does the 120 frames per second slow motion compare between the A7R III and the A7 III? The A7 III is better. From what I've seen, Three Trees, I haven't used the A7R III though, but from the reviews I've seen, the A7 III is better. Gerald said Canon has a big hill to climb by the time their next EOS-R comes out. And the problem then, you're going to have the A7S III coming out. Where were we? I'm going to skip down a few because we have to move on. Imagine if Metabones or someone make a Canon RF to E mount and you get access to that fast glass. That would be cool if you want to use the big lenses. Love you, bro. Keep up the great content. Canon sucks. Mark said, Tony and Chelsea tried to rescue and said they will use the Canon for vlogging. Epic Skies said, adapters are fine in optimal lighting conditions. Yeah, they are. If anything after that, you're in trouble. I agree. Long Rider said, Amar is not even a professional photographer. He's a telemarketer. M50 is a better vlogging camera than the EOS-R, and even that's soft. What else have we got? Just let me scroll down because we're going to have to move on. I'm just trying to see if there's anything that I'd like to say. Yoris said, I must say I like the lenses of the EOS-R with the extra ring for settings. That is a great feature. Yes, I agree. But the price Canon is crazy. You can buy an A7 III and the Tamron 28 to 75 for it. Exactly. That is the exact point. That camera is way overpriced for what they're offering you. And the last, any info about the next Sony camera with an articulated screen? Well, not yet. Well, we're hoping the A7000 comes out before Christmas. I mentioned that in a video I just posted. But we have to wait and see about that. I'm just trying to see if there's any other things that I had to miss. A few people are just joking about the Sony color science. Oh, Tony's never believe a man that drinks coffee in a Sony mug. Pretend coffee. Fine, depends on how much... Oh, I'm not sure what that means. All right, so anyway, let's go... Oops, let me just go here. View. Enter full screen, because that just went big. Oh. What have I done? I've lost it. Bear with me a second, guys. I've lost the... I've made it go full screen. I can't quit it. Oh, hang on. There we go. I think. Yeah, let me bring that chat back. I went full screen and it took over the whole page and I couldn't see the screen. So let me just bring this chat back. All right, let me bring that back down. Before we skip on to the next story, I just have to say thanks, Joe, so much for the donation. Really appreciate that. All right, so I think we'll move on because I think we can go on to the next story. All right, so let's have a look at it. 8 thumbs down. Wow, we have got a few Canon users in here now. I love it. All right, so let's go to the next story. I want to say that the 24mm, let me just move this over a little bit so you can see it. The Sony 24mm is now in stock, I believe, so it's now shipping. A few people are obviously going to start getting this. This is probably a lens that I'm going to get in the near future, I would say. Initially, I was thinking that I wouldn't get this lens because I love the 28-75 so much and I can use that on a gimbal. But after looking at the details, like this was a review that this guy did. What was his name? His name was Albert Bross, I think. Dross. He actually posted a short video. I'll put these links down below. But basically he said, overall, I was very happy with the lens. Most importantly, because it didn't feel like it was even in my bag. It was so light, he basically says, and I could almost find a use for it. I would definitely recommend this lens to anyone. I love shooting at extreme wide angle and extreme telephoto, but this lens is just so great for a wide variety of uses. Now, he said in here that in summary, it's a very versatile lens, excellent sharpness at all apertures, even wide open at 1.4. Very lightweight, and it's only 445 grams. Aperture ring on the lens is great if you're doing video because it's stepless. And that's one of the great things. I haven't got that in here, but to have that stepless aperture ring like the Sony 1.4 is amazing because you don't get that stepping. 67mm thread, so it's not that big, which is great. Great sun stars. Great for astrophotography. Stars in corners are sharp with very few chroma and aberrations. Best performance on such a lens that I've seen. Has some flaring going on that is fixed by putting the lens hood on most of the times. Overall, a great all-around lens. So it looks, that's what probably interests me more. I'm more interested because that it's got the 445 grams in the weight of this, and it's got that beautiful aperture ring, which I love. I'll just grab the Sony one so I can show you what I mean. See, what you've got is you have this aperture ring that you can click. It can be, you can obviously go on auto if you want to use it on complete auto, which is the red dot there. But then you've got a switch on this side here, which if you click, it will make a noise. And then it's a step one. I'm just seeing if you can see it. Now, the problem if you use that on your video lenses is you get a step between the aperture. So if you were, say, in a church and you're walking from the church to the outside and you want to smoothly change the aperture while you're walking, you can do that by just using this, and then there's no step in the aperture, and that's great. So that lens has that. So that's another great feature of it. So there's a couple of reasons why I'm interested in it. The lightweight, 445 grams. The Tamron is 600 on, and this is quite light. Well, that lens is only, it's only 445 grams, so it's ridiculously light, really, when you think it's a 1.4 lens. It only has a 67mm thread as well, which is also great. So I think this could be the ultimate lens, really, to stick on a gimbal, and that might be why I get it down the line or down the track. I'm really, looking forward to that lens, and now it's shipping. So I'm just going to pop back to the live chat for a minute and just see if anyone has anything to say about the 24 as well. I'm just going to read some of these other questions. Three Trees said, Sony A5000 is the one you recommend for people looking to starting out. The A6300 is still, or the A6000 is still a great camera if you're just starting out. Jason said, I do love the aperture rings on lenses. That 24 is definitely going to be in my camera bag. And that's the thing, and that's what I'm saying is so good about that lens. Anything where you can have that aperture ring is really a great advantage if you're dealing with smoothly changing that aperture when you're walking, say, in from a dark environment to a light environment, or light into a dark environment, or even if just the sun comes out and you want to change it. It's a great way of quickly just changing something without having that stepping that you see. There's nothing worse than a normal lens where you change it on the actual camera and you'll see that step come across and it will wreck your footage. It's not usable. So to have it so it smoothly goes and you get quite good at it means you can still keep going, and that's one of the great advantages of it. What else have we got here? Is the Sony kit lens any good? I have a tight budget. No, I wouldn't buy the kit lenses. I'd save and get I'd just buy a good manual, a good third-party lens or something like that. I wouldn't get a kit lens ever. I think you're better off to save your money and buy something like the Tamron, or even if you can't afford that, just to buy a prime lens, you know, a 2.8 prime lens or something, like the 35 f2 that Samyang has, one of those lenses, or some of the Sigma lenses. I'd definitely get a prime lens rather than getting a kit lens. I would never buy a kit lens. Jason said, buy used if you have a tighter budget. Friends don't let friends use kit lenses. Exactly. Just stay away from kit lenses. You're going to regret it and you'll have to sell it and get nothing back for it. David's got gas, the 24mm. Ray said, I like how the 24mm matches my Tamron's filter size. Yeah, I know, and that's what interests me, Ray, as well. I really do like that size. That 67 is a great size lens. Remember, for me, it is all about having this smaller lens. I really do appreciate having the smaller sizes. That's when I first thought about the GM. I thought it was going to be a massive lens and I wasn't going to be interested in it. But after I saw what was involved in that, the specifications, it made me realize that I really would probably like it. Gerald said, my 24 1.4 is on the way. We'll have it by the weekend. Love the declickable aperture ring. Yeah, it's one of the best things, Gerald. Let us know in the photography, videography school what you think of it. Can't wait to see some images from you. Dolph said, I would like to know if the kit lens is good too for its price. No, don't get it. Save money, buy the just the body and get a prime or something. Oreo said 24mm is great for a gimbal because if you assign a button to APS-C mode, you have a 24mm and a 36 prime, and that's a very good point, Oreo. And it'll also have excellent autofocus too. That's the thing you've got to understand with that. Being a Sony G-Master lens, you can bet that the video autofocus on that lens is going to be outstanding, so it's going to be a great lens for video. Elric said, was considering the 24 1.4 GM for gimbal work, but my Laowa 15mm f2 is a really light lens and works great on a gimbal. That is a fantastic lens, Elric. And in crop mode can get a similar result to 24mm. Tim said, has anyone ever looked into making a direct plug screen that will be powered from the camera, HDMI, USB ports, basically an add-on flip-out screen that plugs on the side of the camera? No. I'm surprised no one has ever come up with a mod to do it though. I think the problem is that the cameras have been sort of updated so quickly that no one has thought that it would be worthwhile doing it. If it was a Canon, you may think yes, because the Canon bodies have been 3 years in between releasing one. You might think that that would be worthwhile. But the Sony bodies have been coming out sort of fairly often, so I don't think anyone has done it for that reason. But it's certainly an interesting idea. Jason said, yes, they knew could do both 10-bit through HDMI, I'll agree. Oh, you're talking about 10-bit through those cameras, yes. It won't help the softness, though. The softness is softness. Thumbs down went to 3. Oh, that's interesting. Well, according to a wedding professional, the Canon R is amazing in I trust him. Travis Harris photography works is tremendous, not just good. Well, it might be okay for photography, and I'm still going to wait to see what Max says about the dynamic range and everything of that, Dave. But if you're dealing with videography like I do, And this is the thing that I've said to you before. The future is definitely not stills. It is stills and video. And I've said this to you all along, that young kids coming into the world now, or even young kids at school, are doing video and everything all the time. They will not be hiring just a photographer. I can tell you, when those kids start to get married in a few years' time, they're going to demand video and stills at the same time. I think stills photographers is going to be a thing that's not going to exist for much longer. It'll still be around for a while, but if you're going to get work, you're going to have to become fusion, which means you're going to have to do stills and video at the same time. That is definitely going to be the future, guys. It is definitely the way it's going. You've only got to see how kids are with iPhones. Everything now is becoming multimedia in the fact that they're shooting stills and video. If you don't learn to do that and your camera's not capable of doing it, you're going to be left behind. What else have we got? What else have we got here? I have the A6. Gerald said the 24 1.4 has a new linear focusing motor also, like the 400 2.8, will focus fast and quiet. Yes, it will. That's for sure. I'm just reading a couple of these other questions. How is the IAF with the Tamron? Ed, it's fantastic. It's brilliant. That camera works just like a native lens for me. I can't say anything bad about that lens at all. What else have we got? All right, so I'll keep going down, otherwise we'll be here for too long. Michael said, so happy you went with went very small on the 24 GM. Yep, can't wait. So you're obviously getting that, Michael. 24mm is a 24. Crop mode changes the frame of view, not the millimeter. Yes, that's true. Chasing Creation said 24mm may be on my purchase shortlist, but I'll be waiting until the next lens batch from Sony cameras comes out, and hopefully Tamron will release a 17 to 35. I hope they do too. I also hope they release a 70 to 200 around that range. Dolph said, is the Sony 85 1.4 good for a starter? I want to get into low light photography. Yes, it's amazing. But if you want to save some money, you can get the 85 1.4. If you're just starting, Dolph, I probably would get the 85 1.8. and then you'll have enough money to buy something else. That could be the way to go. You might be able to still get a good, reasonably good 35 or something like that, or get the Tamron 28 to 75. It'll be the same money, basically. Gerald said the 24, I read that before. I'm just reading these out with the David Oastler. Casper said Sony. Indanandri or something says, maybe the EOS-R is a low-end body and Canon has a Pro in the works. But the problem is that doesn't stack up because they're not charging that like it's a low-end body. And if it is a low-end body, they're ripping the Canon users off. And I can't believe that Canon users aren't screaming about where they've priced that camera. It's nuts. The money that they're asking for that camera is insane when you think you can buy what you can buy the A7 III for. Like someone just said before, you can get the A7 III and the Tamron 28 to 75 lens for the same money you're paying for just that body alone, and that is ridiculous. F27 Photography says, okay, I just joined the live video, so what is Sony coming out with? What is the next camera or cameras? Well, I had a discussion about that the other day. I still believe the A7000 is going to be first. We're hoping by Christmas. And I still believe that the A7S will probably be in the end of the first quarter, 2019. Probably at NAB will be the way that will be when the A7S III will be announced, I would think. What else have we got? Langsaball said, Ben, can you imagine the spam fest if we didn't? Not saying you were spam. I can just see people flooding live chats with spam. I'm not sure what that was. Where else are we? Mike said, when you get a chance, delete the old video. Yes, I will. Oh, actually, let me do it now so I've done it, just so that people aren't going to keep going to that. Just so I've got deleted. Otherwise, because I'm going to be here for half an hour. Creator Studio. I'm just going to delete that previous video, guys, just so it's not on there anymore. Where are we? No, I'm not going to do it. I'll probably end up deleting the wrong one. I'll do it as soon as I've finished this. What else have we got? I will, though, milk. I'll get rid of that as soon as this show's finished. David, that's 3 drinks. Here we go. Langston said, do you like chewing up HD space like mad? 3 trees, yeah, that's the problem if you shoot raw, that's for sure. Epic Skies said 85 1.8 in the Tamron 28 to 75s is 2 lenses for the price of the GM. And that's right. What a fantastic combo that is. The Sony 85 is brilliant lens, and then you've got the Tamron 28 to 75 to work as well. It would be fantastic. Especially if you're starting out. That's one way that you could get a really good setup as well. Essential Light said the 55 1.8 and the 85 1.8 are must-have lenses for any Sony user. Yes, I love those, but I love both of those lenses. The 55 Essential Light is still my favourite video lens. I adore that on a gimbal. I really do love it on a gimbal. So sharp, and the focus is nuts with that lens. Mike said, trying video for the first time at this event this weekend. A7R3, any advice? What sort of video are you shooting? What I tend to do a lot of the time, Mike, if I'm using gimbals, if you're using gimbals, I like to use center focus just because I like to not worry about it's going to grab things that aren't out of the frame, and I use the center focus. It depends on what you're shooting, Mike. Langston said, I rented the A7R3 for the past week. It's a lot of data, and I'm not sure what I was shooting was better for it, but I was shooting mainly people. Yeah, unless you're shooting landscapes, Langston, I'd get the A7 III. If you're shooting landscapes, potentially real estate, or if you're doing high-end studio work, I'll get the A7R3. Everything else I'd buy the A7 III for. Jason said, get the R3 if you want resolution. It's a very nice jump from the R2. Or if you want to crop, obviously, heavily, you get the A7R3. Milman said, really, is the Tamron just 300 bucks? No, it's around, I think it's around 7 for you US guys, I think. What else have we got? Epic Sky said that one Chinese guy, I have the 70 to 200 GM, the focus and zoom is beautiful. Yeah, it would be. It's a great lens. Ordered the 24mm this week. My wallet is still crying. Ricat said, I want the 70 to 200 2.8, but I've honestly been looking at adapting on the Sony A mount. One, because it's a lot cheaper than the 2K. I love the 70 to 200 f4. I adore that lens. But that's what I like. And if you need 2.8, you obviously need the 70 to 200. Epic Sky says the 85 1.8 is perfect. I agree. That is a fantastic lens. I'm going to scroll down to where I've got some names, guys, so we can move on. Venom said, to me, if you are going to stick with Canon, I think the 5D Mark 1V is better than the EOS. Exactly. I agree with you too. You get the 2 card slots. It's definitely better. Do you think the upcoming APS-C will use Sony's new EVF? No. I don't think so. I wouldn't think they'll put that in the A7000. I think that will be saved straight for the A7S III. Ali said, do you think the... Oh, I've already mentioned that. Jason said, I still can't believe Canon haven't rolled out an answer to the Nikon D850. That's an amazing camera, Jason. I agree with you. Do you think they would compete in the digital SLR space? D850 is still the best digital SLR ever made. I don't think that's probably going to happen now that they've pushed into mirrorless. I think they'll probably more concentrate now on their high-end mirrorlesses that are going to come out. I don't know if they're going to have enough money and research to keep developing these 2 systems separately, but we'll have to wait and see. Hope you like pics. Said, hi David, new from on the horizon with a new anything new with new Tamron? No, I haven't heard yet, but they're going to happen. There's no way Tamron are going to ignore this market. They've sold too many 28 to 75s. They're certainly going to jump into that market. We just have to wait. Venom said to me, are you going to stick with Canon? Oh no, I've said that. Yeah, I've already done that. F27 Photography said, is the Sony a6300 still a good camera to use in 218? I'm thinking of getting the 85 1.8 for portraits. What are your thoughts on that? Well, the focal length may be a bit tight on an a6300. Remember, it'll be roughly like you're trying to use a 135 in the distance that you're away from the subject. So it's going to be very tight. You could use it, but you might find it's a little bit tight. I like using the 55 on the A6300 due to the fact that it then basically has that feel of an 85. In the other words, you know, that you step back as far as using an 85. So I probably would say it might be a little bit tight on an A6300. Yes, it's still fine. Obviously, the A7 III has put a massive update to those cameras. The A6300 and the A6500 are basically the same, apart from you've got IBIS on the A6500, and it has a better buffer. So the A6300, yes, is still a pretty good camera. That's what I'm using now, actually. Bill said, Canon EOS-R rated #1 among North Korean shooters. Well, I can't see why. Joris said, Nikon D850 is also on my wish list for the focus stacking function and the 8K time-lapse. It is a great camera, and Joris, I agree with you. Sam said, hi, David, I laughed so hard when I saw you celebrating. Are you talking about the Christmas one? Milk said, I'm a Canon shooter. When I got around to taking a look at the R, I was disappointed, but for none of the reasons people mention on YouTube. Is it just me, or the electronic viewfinders slow or accurate? Well, they certainly are on Sony now. Now, I haven't used the EOS-R, so I can't say how good that viewfinder is, but they certainly are good on the Sonys now, particularly the A9 and the A7R3. The A7 is not quite as good, but the A9 and the A7 are amazing. I've just got to top up my coffee. Cheers to coffee. Hi, DeBran, have a great weekend. Have a great weekend, Tony. I don't blame you for going to bed. It must be late for you guys. All right, next story, guys. Let's keep going on. This Sony is interesting because I wanted to discuss this with you. That someone put an idea up on Sony Alpha Rumors about having a SSD battery grip, or is this possible with any camera to add a battery grip with an SSD? And I think this is a bit of a stupid design, to be honest. If you look at the design here, what this person was saying, and I think it was probably just a conversation starter, that, you know, you have a drive built in. Now, he's just stuck it underneath, so that wouldn't be practical. It'd get damaged for starters, and then not only that, it would be awful to hold and be pretty cumbersome. But it's interesting that he said he made this idea of a vertical battery grip with an integrated 1 terabyte SSD and a USB-C port to record videos in better codecs like an external recorder, and remove the 30 minutes recording limitation. Now, I don't think this is even going to be possible, because the thing is, it may be possible if you're dealing with USB-C, I suppose, but this is going to take so much processing time out. The reason why the boards, and this is the reason why you can't have card slots in a battery grip, due to the fact that they have to be soldered, and this is the Australian view, soldered. I think you say soldered, don't you, in America? But they have to be soldered onto the motherboard because the data rate has to be so fast to get onto those cards. So it would be an issue with getting the data off quickly enough into these cameras. So it may be possible in the future, but there's no way at the moment I think that's even going to be possible. I mean, it would be a fun idea if someone could work out how to do this and have it running, and you could, say, have the 2 card slots and an SSD built somewhere else. I think the way probably this is more going to go is to have an SSD or some kind of this sort of format inside the camera itself, and then you would have another card slot for backup, and that would be a much better way of working rather than, you know, having that sort of system. And I think that probably is going to be the future. Eventually we'll see sort of SSDs or something internal, enough memory inside that will save everything on the camera, and have an external backup card in, or even 2 backup cards on the camera as well to go with. So, you know, I mean, do you think that would be a great idea or not? You know, I mean, I'm not certain that I think it's even a good idea. I'm just going to go to the chat to see if anyone thinks it's a good idea. But there's no ports, I think, that could take it at the moment. Millman said, I mean, it's slow to turn on when you raise your eye. No, it's certainly not with the Sony cameras, Milkman. No. Mark said, the A6500 second hand with that Tamron lens is what I'd recommend for beginners. Ike is hiding. Langston Ball said, integrated SSD or one that I can pop out. B&B Film said, I had a conversation about it on my channel about the battery grip and the Nikon Z6 and the Z7. Yeah, it's not possible though. You cannot do that with the connectors that are on that camera. Good night, Oreo. I don't blame you for going to bed. Thank you so much for chiming in. Langston said you would have to build a special port. Exactly. Jason said, so it's not possible to do it at this stage. Jason said, I doubt anything like that will happen. Is it possible? Yes, it would need more contacts at the bottom of the camera. Exactly. There's no contacts at the moment that will do it. And that's the issue. That's why Nikon you couldn't do that with Nikon. People were saying you could put an extra slot in the battery grip, but you can't. It's impossible. I don't like memory being hardwired into the camera. Casper said, very good idea. I just don't think it's going to be possible. All right, so let's go over and talk about the next story. Now, this is probably, I hope this doesn't upset Nikon viewers because it's not meant to. It's not slamming the Nikon like what Canon was. It's just talking about how the Nikon autofocus could a little bit be improved. Let me just answer these couple of questions first. Grip SSD would need an entirely new alpha body with parts. Exactly, it would. Thanks. I'm going to take another look at the Sony. I'm curious about all the new cameras. Yeah, you'll find the EVFs on the new A7 cameras are fantastic. NVMe storage is small enough to fit in a battery grip and very fast, but I think you're right about the read-write from the memory to the grip. Yeah, it's not possible. That's the thing that you just can't do, but it may happen in the future. All right, next story. I saw this on DP Review, and it actually talked about... How long have we been online anyway? Probably ages. I'm going to get in trouble again, I think. 5 ways that the Nikon Z could be improved. 4 of them involve the AF. So it's clearly an uneven... Photomiac said the same thing. He was talking about the camera's autofocus in low light and things like that was left a little bit to be desired. So the thing that... Before I go into this story, let me just discuss with you the things that... we're saying now. I think Sony now have come to a point in this whole manufacturing process where they are now making amazing cameras, and it's so hard for other manufacturers to compete. Nikon have struggled a little bit with the focus, and I'm going to go through that with you in a minute, where they say it can be improved. And they're things that I had that were very similar to what we had when it was the A7 II line of cameras. And I'll mention that when we go through what they're saying should be improved. Overall, though, the video is much better on the Nikon than it is on the Canon, but like Max was saying, the video is over-sharpened, like way over-sharpened, and you're getting aliasing and things like that on there. So that's issues, and whether that can be fixed with firmware, we don't know. But Sony now have really put this level so high. The benchmark is so high now on the Sony cameras with things like focusing. Remember, early on, Canon users used to say to us that our focusing sucked. Well, I honestly think now that Canon and Nikon are so close now in their focusing that it really doesn't matter anymore. The AF on the A7 III and the A9, I believe, is amazing, and it's by far as good as anything I've ever used, and I had the D4S. It's brilliant, and I do think it's very, very close to what Canon has to offer. Very, very close. So their issues now, like I'm saying, that Sony have put this huge playing field. Sony's video is so good. You know, their log profiles are so fantastic. There's all of these things that they give us. Now let's look at what they're saying about the Nikon, because I'll mention in some ways where how it relates to where we were with Sony previously. They're saying that the D850 has, with some of the advantages unique to mirrorless cameras such as seamless video shooting, silent shutter, and phase detection autofocus array covers almost the entire frame, how this camera is better than what the D850 has. So that's what they're saying about the strength. So they're saying it does have better video autofocus than what the D850 have. But let's look at what they're saying. Now they're saying it's a critique, not a conclusion. Now if we go here, they're basically saying that the AF performance, their algorithms just aren't on par with those of the Nikon digital SLRs. So they're saying that overall the video the tracking isn't as good as what, say, a D850 is. And that's one of the problems that they're saying. And they're saying, I think, if you look through this, that the Sony IAF is nearly infallible. So in other words, the Sony IAF is just way better than what Nikon have got. is going. And also, I think they're saying that the 3D tracking modes have been left off this, or very cumbersome compared to using the D850, which is very good. I remember when I had the D4S, the 3D tracking was amazing, and they haven't brought that over the same way onto the Nikon Z cameras, and that's a pity that they just haven't brought this tracking over, and it's nowhere near as good as what, say, something like Sony have been able to do. So that's what they're saying is the number one problem with the IAF. If we go to number two, they're saying that another issue we've encountered is how quickly the Z7 AF begins to struggle in low light. And I remember Photomiac said this, that it did struggle in low light compared to what he was seeing in his other cameras, his Nikon digital SLRs and even Sony. I found that the Sony cameras particularly now, the low light focusing on Sony cameras now with fast lenses is nuts. I can almost focus in pitch blackness if you have the right lenses. It is insane. I did a dance concert on Monday night, and some of those shots were in really deep, dark light, and it had no problems with focusing at all. Ben, who was assisting me, was using his D810, and also that worked really well as well. But obviously, the Z7s have issues with low light compared to what the digital SLRs are. So they're struggling a little bit with that. So it's saying basically that it starts to hunt in light levels, 4 stops brighter than comparable cameras from Sony and Canon. So in other words, the low light focusing is nowhere near as good as what Sony is. And that's a bad thing. So, you know, it might be something that they can improve with firmware updates, but at this stage, it's nowhere near as good in low light. If we go to number 4, what they're saying is here, backlit shots. Now, this is one area where my A7S II used to struggle. When I used to, say, shoot a bride, and they were sometimes standing against a window, or even if it was an outside and the sun was streaming in behind them, the A7 II used to struggle a little bit with that. It would often just really rack focus because it couldn't find a subject to shoot on, and I've found that really has almost disappeared with the A7 III and the A9. It's so much better in dealing with backlit situations than it was before. The A7 II used to struggle. So that's one amazing thing that they have fixed with the Sony cameras. But obviously the Z7 still struggles with it. It says if you try to shoot a severely backlit portrait, particularly where your subject isn't well lit, the Z7 often hunts and never achieves focus, which is what I was saying to you, what I was used to get with the A7 II. That did used to be a real problem. And it says here, this is compared to Nikon's recent digital SLRs with cross-type AF points across the frame, which usually nail focus even in the most challenging conditions, as do Sony's current generation A9 and A7 series. Like I said, they have improved the backlighting focus amazingly in the new type of cameras compared to what the Z7 is. It says the Z7 isn't alone here. It says the dual pixel AF system in the Canon EOS-R also struggles with backlighting, but it's the shame that the pro-grade cameras like the Z7 is unable to acquire focus in that situations. That's a real downfall, and that, like I said, I did used to hate that with the Sony A7 too. Number 5, it's just saying the autofocus user face is cumbersome, and I think they're saying it's not easy to do. You've got to press multiple buttons and things like that to actually get into like this 3D tracking mode and all this sort of stuff. You've got to press multiple buttons and stuff like that. I think that's basically all they were. Customization, I'm not going to go through. I'll put these in later on, and you can have a read of this as well later on. So let's go to Q&A, because I want to start to go to Q&A, and I'll open that up to you all. And we'll spend a little bit of time going through this. Let me just see. I don't know how long we've been on, probably too long. So let's quickly go through some of these questions, guys. So fire away any questions that you have that you'd like to know. Rickrat said NVMe storage is small enough to fit in the battery grip, but I think you're right about the read-write out. Yes, that's true. Reliable wireless transfer is the future. They're going to have to fix that majorly, though, Joe, because nothing's reliable at the moment. Carl says 55 minutes. Oh, that's not too bad. Chase and Creation said 57. Well, that's not too bad. I'm actually ahead of time actually today. M. Plato said that's awesome. New Nikon viewfinder will help us see mission focus shots. BMW Film says, well, they say the Nikon Z6 is better in video than the Z7. Yeah, we're going to have to wait for that to see, won't we? It's a pity, though, that their higher-end camera is bad, though, in that regard. So, yeah, it's not good. Joe said, if the Z7 can't focus, it's useless. Well, I think the focus is generally good. It's those issues, certain issues, that are not working at this stage, Joe. Three Trees said, is there a way to get the focus jitter out of the A7R2 video? No, that was the problem. I had that with my A7R2 as well. It's basically, the only way you could do it is you had to focus manually. As soon as you start using continuous focus on that camera, you'll get that jitter. It's just been improved in the later cameras, Joe. There's nothing you can do about it. Three Trees Photography said, is there a way to get... Oh, no, I've just read that one. Braden said, I absolutely love my A7 III, but I have to say after doing some high-volume portrait work this week, the EVF and display resolution caused me a bit of trouble when checking focus. Yeah, look, they had to take something out on that camera. Now, remember, the price you're getting that camera for is amazing if you think about it. It just doesn't have the EVF that the A9 and the A7R III has. Now, they could have put that in there, but then the price is going to be jacked up. So they had to take something out, and it was obviously the EVF. So the EVF is a definite downside. It's still good enough. It's still as good as the A7R2, and I use that all the time, and I find it's okay. But it's definitely not as good as what an A7 III is or the A9. If you put them side by side, you can clearly tell there's a difference. James said, how much have you missed? A fair bit, James. Nearly an hour, James, I've been on. Braden said, actually looked, my low ISO photos had noise. What was that with the A7 III, Braden? Well, if they've got low ISO, you're probably underexposing. The thing you've got to do with any camera, digital camera, is you have to shoot a little bit to the right. Now, it's really important to never underexpose. The second you're dealing with anything in low light, with any of these cameras, you shouldn't be raising the shadows because the noise resides in the shadows. The second you're going to lift the shadows, you're going to have trouble. The thing I'm telling you to do is if you're shooting in anything that's low light, nail the exposure or shoot a little bit over. Go +1 and then you can always drag down a little bit. If you do that, you're not going to see noise. Hi from England, said the Slippers there. Gerald said, if the new A7000 has 4K 60p, will you buy it or wait for 4K 60 in the next A7 III body? Gerald, I'm going to wait. No matter what probably is announced at the end of the year, I'm going to wait and see what the A7S III has. I don't need two cameras. I only need one more video camera to finish my kit that I need at this stage for next year. So I'm going to probably wait to see what the A7S III has over the A7000. I think that's probably what I'll do. I hope I'm not hit by gas and I just go out and buy it. But what I want to do is to see how both compare and then make a decision just on one. I'm totally happy with what I've got for stills now with the A7 III, the A9 and the A7R2. I'm completely happy with using that at the moment. I may upgrade my A7R III to the A7R4 when that's announced. I probably will, actually. I'll probably get the A7R4. But at this stage, I only need one video camera, and I don't want to sort of get the A7000 and then for them to announce the A7S III a little bit later, and then I've got to sell the A7000. So I'll probably wait to see and then make a decision then. Now, I'll make a decision on what's there in the camera, whether both cameras do have 4K 60p, what data rate the cameras have, obviously. I think you'll probably find you may find the A7000 only still gives us 100. You might find that the A7S III will give us, up to 400, bit even higher. You might find that the A7000 gives us 120. The A7S III may give us 240 or whatever. We'll have to wait and see. So it may have an internal ND. They did make me think when they said they want to pass expectations on that camera or pass what everyone's expectations are for the A7S III, so I'll probably wait. Iron de Brown says, did you see the latest firmware for the GH5 and GH5S really improve the autofocus? No, I haven't seen that, Tony. That's really interesting. I'll still be surprised, though, if it's as good as what Sony are offering. But that's great, and I used to really like my camera. The focus let me down, that was for sure. All the PADF points on the Z cameras are horizontal with no cross-type sensors. A big mistake. Interesting. Three True said, thanks for the reply. Michael said, David, I'm considering going all primes, 3 to 5 lenses for weddings. What's your thought on that? I use primes a lot already. Just wondering what you think. And you could easily do it, Michael. I shot all primes for such a long time, and I was just basically nearly shooting the 85 and the 35 as the whole time I did it. You're going to need a really wide angle. The 24 won't be wide enough though, so you're going to need a really nice wide angle lens for you know, like if you were in a really tight location, you're going to need something like a 12mm or something like that. If you've got that, you could do it. There's no reason why you need to have a 70 to 200. I could easily shoot that. I have been enjoying using the Tamron though, leaving that on one camera and then using my other camera. I'm still using the 85 and the 35 1.4 and the 55 sometimes, and even the 70 to 200. But you could easily, if you wanted to cut down gear, easily do a wedding with 3 primes. You could almost shoot a whole wedding with a 35. You really could. Says, I know photographers that do that. Sizzleman said, if you could buy only one of these lenses for travel vlogging, would you get the 24 1.4 or the Zeiss 16 to 35 f4? I'd probably get the 16 to 35, only because I'd like that zoom range if I was only taking one lens with me. The 24 may not be wide enough if you're dealing with doing you know, if you were traveling and you wanted to get some beautiful architecture and things like that, 24 may not be wide enough. So I'd probably get the 16 to 35 and use that if I could only have one travel lens. But having said that, see, the thing is you still need some sort of zoom. I would love to just take this as a travel lens. Even though this is only a 28, I could then just take a wide angle with me and just have that, say, have 2 lenses. But this is a great focal length because a lot of people say the 28's not wide enough, and yes, it may not be, but I love the 75 as a portrait length. When you rack this up to 75, it really does give a beautiful look at 2.8 for portraiture because you're getting close to the 85, which I love anyway. So it really is a great lens. So I'd say a great travel combo would be this with a wider angle lens. Just a prime with manual focus or something. 14mm, yeah, that'd be great, Michael. 14 1.4 would be beautiful. If you use IAF for portraits, hang on, where are we? Joe said, if you use IAF for portraits, you don't need to see it with your eyes. IAF works amazing on the new Sony cameras. It really is incredible. Mark said, how did that drone footage go at your wedding, by the way? Really good. I had a guy come with me. You'll actually see that soon when I start to post the other videos up. You'll see the actual drone footage that he actually shot. It was great. I'm doing another wedding tomorrow too. So like I said, it's wedding season for me. So I have got another wedding I've got to do tomorrow. Michael said, if you consistently shoot weddings, stick with zooms. You don't have to though, Braden. I do love shooting with primes in weddings. I really do love it. Bike Vision Scotland said, times are changing. Canon, Nikon kept overpricing their cameras with low specs and performance. The brand names will no longer save them in this day of technology, and you may be right. Yes, Michael, 14 1.4 would be fantastic, and what a great way to travel. Such a small kit. You could have 14mm, you could have an 85, and then a 35. Brilliant. Roy said, is the 50 1.8 any good? It's all right. I wouldn't buy it. I'd get the 55 1.8 is much better, or the 50 1.4 is even better than that. D1 Young said A9, amazing, still my favourite camera. It really is. Really appreciate it too, guys, if you give me a thumbs up. I really would appreciate that. It just makes people watch this later on. But thank you so much for the 95 that's liked the live. Thank you so much, guys. Braden said, not really buddy, pretty bad chromatic aberration. I'm not sure what lens that was. Braden said, get the Zeiss 50 1.8 or the 55. I'd get the 55 1.8. Camera Conspiracies. Love your show, David. I always watch them. Your accent comforts me. Thanks so much, mate. I love your channel as well. It cracks me up. I think you're one of the best YouTubers out there, to be totally honest. I really love what you say, and it's great. You give a little bit of humour, but what you always say is the truth, and it's a great way of saying it. And as an Aussie, we love that sort of thing because a sense of humor means a lot to us. We're very frank, and I've discussed that with people before, that the Aussie sense of humor sometimes insults people because we basically say things as we are. We don't hold back, and it's something like over here when mates talk, we basically swear at each other, and it's different. I've been to the US a lot. We are different in that respect in the way that we can talk to one another. Some people can find it insulting, but it's just the way the Aussie sense of humor is. So thank you so much for watching. Are there any last questions, guys, before we go? Tomorrow I've got a wedding which I'm actually shooting as well, so stay tuned and I'll show some examples of that coming up. It's going to be really good. It's a bohemian type wedding, which should be fantastic. I'm photographing Kiara on Tuesday. We're going to go away somewhere. I don't know where. It's going to be around 30, so I'm going to go and do a shoot with Kiara. I might do a few things with her, and I'll post those videos in the coming days. The next wedding video hopefully will be up on Monday. I'm going to start showing the bride's makeup section. We're going to go through that as the next video coming up. So that will be up next week. I've already put a couple of things as well. So that'll be interesting. So stay tuned. There's a lot going to be coming up in the coming days. Dwayne Young says, I have the A9, A7 III and the FF7 with a massive lens selection, including all G-Master lenses. However, I've bought the EOS-R and I like it for the following reasons. Flippy screen. Yes, it's probably the only thing it's got going for it, Dwayne. I wish Sony would bring that out. That's for sure. Langston said, Aussies don't offend me. I work with Germans. Facebook group is a photography videography school, guys, so make sure you join that group. Now let me just bring that up because I want to just show you, because some people are looking for the wrong group. Let me just bring this over here, and I'll show you which is the right group to join, because if you don't spell the "and" the right way, it doesn't work. So let me show you which one it is. So if you're looking to join the group, you've got to put the "and" like that. So it's photography and videography school. If you search for that, it will come up. Some people are making the mistake and putting "and" in. It's got to be photography and videography school. So if you search for that, please join us. I always post stuff on there. We've got stacks of stuff, reviews of different cameras going in. People are posting all the time. Oreo is actually talking about the Sony GM and the Battery 25 here, reviewing it, talking about the differences. We're talking about here couples doing flips and stuff, which is great. It's fantastic. It's such a good site, very positive. So please join us on there, guys. Another thing too, I'm just going to put in the live chat here now. Follow me on Instagram. I promise I'll follow you back. So it's Oastler. Add me on Instagram. I've just posted it here in the live chat now. If you follow me on Instagram, I will immediately follow you back. Well, as soon as I see you, follow me. But don't bother following me if you're going to unfollow me, because I use followers on the iPhone and it tells me who's done that, and then I just unfollow them back. But if you follow me, I will follow you back. I hate people that just do it for likes. It's just rubbish. Chuck has said, yep, camera conspiracies rock. Yes, guys, if you haven't watched his channel, log on to him and give him a big thumbs up. Subscribe to his channel because his stuff's fantastic. I love watching it. I always watch it whenever he brings something out. I always make sure I watch it, that's for sure. So give him a big like. If you haven't subscribed to him, please rock over there and subscribe. Best sense of humour on the internet. But what he does, it says the truth. He just says it in a funny, entertaining way. So log on to that as well. All right, guys, if that's all for today, I'm going to log off. It's been a reasonably short one for today. I can't wait to see the Canon fanboys come into this and start slamming this because it's going to be hilarious. I guarantee I'm going to get heaps of trolls logging in, even though I said at the beginning, please don't watch if you are going to be upset by watching it. That's all, guys. I'm going to keep drinking my coffee, and I'll see you all for the next show. Catch you guys, and thank you so much for supporting me, everyone. I won't post a video tomorrow because I've got a wedding, but I'll try and post something up on Sunday. Let me check no one else has come up. No, that's all. Bye for now, everyone. See you later.